So good morning from Medjugorje. Today's reading is, there's only one reading, one apparition that was done on actually Corpus Christi. That was back in 1979, June 14th of 1979, and is in Garabandal, Spain, which is very, very important. If you watch my news shows ever, I mentioned Garabandal almost every show because we're in the build-up to the warning and stuff, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But anyway, it's Jesus in the Eucharist. My beloved sons, continue to walk trustingly along the road on which your Heavenly Mother is leading you. My plan is about to be fulfilled through you who have responded to my motherly invitation. Second, my action, the purpose of which is to transform you interiorly in order to make you all priests according to the Eucharistic heart of Jesus. The triumph of my Immaculate Heart cannot take place except in the triumph of my Son, Jesus, who will reign once again in the hearts, the souls, and the lives of each person and nation in all of humanity. But as Jesus is truly in heaven, so also is he truly present on the earth in the Eucharist, with his body, his blood, his soul, and his divinity. His glorious reign will shine forth above all in the triumph of his Eucharistic person, because the Eucharist will once again be the heart and center of the whole life of the Church. Jesus in the Eucharist will become the summit of all your prayer, which should be a prayer of adoration, of thanksgiving, of praise, and of propitiation. Jesus in the Eucharist will once again be the center of all liturgical action, which will unfold itself as a hymn to the most holy Trinity through the continual priestly action of Christ, which will be carried out in the Eucharistic mystery. Jesus in the Eucharist will once again be the center of your ecclesial gatherings, because the Church is his temple, his house, which has been built above all that his divine presence may shine forth in your midst. Beloved sons, in these present times the darkness has, alas, obscured even the tabernacle. Around it there is so much emptiness, so much indifference, so much negligence. Each day, doubts, denials, and sacrilegious increase. The Eucharistic heart of Jesus is wounded anew by his own, in his own house, in the very place where he has taken up his divine dwelling in your midst. Become again perfect adorers and fervent ministers of Jesus in the Eucharist, who, through you, makes himself again present immolates himself anew and gives himself to souls. Bring everyone to Jesus in the Eucharist, by adoration, by communion, and by greater love. Help everyone to approach the Eucharistic Jesus in a worthy manner, by cultivating in the faithful an awareness of sin, by inviting them to present themselves for the sacrament of Holy Communion in the state of grace, by educating them in the practice of frequent confession, which becomes necessary before receiving the Eucharist for those who are in mortal sin. Beloved sons, build a dam to hold back the flood of sacrilegious. Never before, as in these present times, have so many communions been made in such an unworthy manner. The Church is deeply wounded by the multiplication of sacrilegious communions. The time has come when your Heavenly Mother says, "Enough! I myself will fill up the great void about my Son Jesus, present in the Eucharist. I will form a barrier of love about His divine presence. I myself will do this through you, beloved sons, whom I wish to set up as a guard of love round about all the tabernacles of the earth." And that is one of the central themes of Garabandal as we are in these the final times leading up to the great warning, where God is going to talk to everybody personally, which will be the fulfillment of the great prophecy from Joel, where God is going to pour out His Spirit on all flesh. And we will all know how we sit with God. It'll be like a mini judgment. We'll still have time to change. But some people will die at the fright of this. It's so much become just a routine to go and stand in church. So many people do not believe in the Eucharist. Well, like all of our Protestant brothers. I was sitting at a table once at a dinner with a Protestant woman who was married to a Catholic, and she was going on that the church was too strict and that we needed to open up to homosexuality. And I mean, so what if and of course the Protestants are supposedly scriptural, and it says right in the Bible that that's what would happen in the last times, that there would be rampant homosexuality. But she said that she did acknowledge, and because I wouldn't have said it to her, but what she practiced was Christianity light. And I would not want to be a person who had to explain to Jesus that whole swaths of the Bible that they just cut out and change. The whole 6th chapter of John, the great discourse on the bread of life. I condemn no one. I have a defense of the Eucharist laid out on my website. You're free to do whatever you wish to do. I never hear an argument from the other side defending their position. You know, all they do is point to the problems, like within the Catholic Church or something. And it's like, well, what would you expect from the Apostolic Church? There's going to be fallen, because everyone is fallen. So there's going to be fallen people within the church, and especially in these times. And that was the central theme of Garabandal, where the message was very simple. There was no secrets like at Fatima. Just said less and less importance is being paid to the Eucharist, and that many cardinals, many bishops, and many priests are on the road to perdition, and they are taking many souls with them. And I'm sure that didn't go over well with some of the clergy, because just like at Fatima, it was given to a little girl. And there are many great priests. The majority of them are great. I mean, some are super, and then people ebb and flow during their life. And there are some that are fallen. And that's why we need to pray for them, to help them and strengthen them in these times, because at no time in history has the devil been this strong in our society and on the earth. And he is attacking the priests and bishops and cardinals most of all, because if he can get one of them to fall, they take so many people with them. That's why they need our prayers. And that was the famous prophecy by John Bosco, where he pointed to these times and where the ship of the church would be floundering at the end of the 20th century, and that the Pope would be steering the ship of the church between the two great pillars, the greater being the Eucharist and the smaller one being Our Mother. And we see that happening today. Still in the early 20th century, adoration is a central theme here in Medjugorje. There was a beautiful service last night, as we are on the anniversary now, the 33rd anniversary of the apparitions here in Medjugorje. And the Eucharist plays a huge part. Like I said, I go to Mass twice a day, because we're allowed to do that if you go to the full Mass. And the Mass is the greatest prayer. That's the number one prayer. That is the way it is for our non-Catholic friends. I mean, I'm sorry, you will come to find that out. I go to some non-Catholic services sometime to see what they're doing, and a lot of times they don't even say the Lord's Prayer, which is right out of Scripture. And of course, the whole Mass and the Eucharist is in Scripture, starting from way in the beginning. We fell by Eve and Adam, then eating the forbidden fruit. Now we are given the Word. And just as Jesus said, "He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood, I will raise him up on the last day." And a lot of the people of his time, you can imagine how hard that must have been for them to understand and grasp. But of course, his apostles say, because we don't understand it, they said, but we know that you are the one. And we now have the grace of 2,000 years, and he has upheld the Eucharist over the last 2 millennia so many times. This is just one in Laciano here, where a priest was having a hard time back around 700 AD believing in the Eucharist. And so while he was performing the consecration, the host turned into a piece of flesh, which exists today, 1,300 years later, and the wine turned into actual physical blood. I mean, it turns into blood every time, but physically doesn't change. That's pretty rare that that's happened. And it turned into 5 globulates. And it just happens to be the same blood type as is on the Shroud of Turin. And we now know that the flesh is heart muscle, the sacred heart of Jesus. But he is there in his entirety, his full divinity. And he gives that to us, the Eucharist, because he knows we're weak. We like to be able to see. So that's the importance of adoration. You should try to go to adoration at least once a week. You should try to go to Mass more than once a week, but it's a grave, grave sin to not go to Mass weekly. Unless there's some big reason why you can't make it, and then you can make it up on another day if for some reason you're indisposed on Sunday. And by indisposed, I don't mean you'd like to go fishing or go to the football game or whatever. That is not busy. And that's the problem. But that's the subtlety of the devil. Just chipping away, chip, 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 chip. And it's going to get much worse before it's all over. So strengthen yourself now in prayer and fasting. And most of all, with the Eucharist. He comes into our bodies. He literally becomes one with us. Flesh of our flesh. We are flesh of his flesh. It is such a great grace that if we understood it, nobody would miss Mass, ever. And people would be going every day. Strengthen yourself, strengthen those around you. Learn how to defend the Eucharist, to explain it to our brothers and sisters. Help them to be drawn in now. Tell them about the great warning that is coming so that they can be strengthened now and be prepared, because the trials will come and it's going to get much harder. So I'm going to enjoy today the feast day, the 33rd feast day of the apparitions here in Medjugorje. I hope you have a great day and a good week, and may God bless you and your family.
Kyrie eleison. Kyrie eleison. Christe